Hey guys, it's Rick. Welcome to the HDVIBE channel. If you'd like to see more tips, tricks, rides, reviews, installs on my Harley-Davidson Tourer motorcycles, as well as information about motorcycles and the motorcycle community large, I ask you please hit that subscribe button. And when you do subscribe, please leave a comment down below saying I subscribe so I can personally reach out and thank you for supporting the channel. Also, don't forget to hit that bell icon and select all so you do get notified every time I do put out new content. So guys, I'm out on the road. We're finishing up a 5-day road trip, and I thought this might be a good time to tell you a little bit about this headset that I've been running now for a couple of months, and that's the Harley-Davidson branded Sena 50C headset. And we'll get into it right after this. That's right, guys. So I've been using this Sena Harley-Davidson branded 50C headset for a time now, a couple months probably. And I want to kind of tell you just a little bit about what you get in the package, how this thing performs, and kind of what my experience has been so far, and maybe some of the things that I'm not too excited about with it. So first of all, in the package, obviously you get the headset. You get some Rockford Fosgate speakers that go in your helmet. You get 2 microphones. You get 2 mounts for the helmet. One more traditional where you kind of screw it in to the bottom lip of the helmet. The other one is more of a 3M adhesive version, which those always make me a little leery, especially when you're out in the sun. If that adhesive gets a little soft, there goes your pretty expensive headset. In addition to that, you get the charging cable, which also can connect to Wi-Fi and do any of the firmware updates, I believe, to both the headset and also there are firmware updates actually for that charging cord. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. There might be a few other little things, obviously instructions in the book as well to kind of tell you what app to download, which I will tell you if you're using these headsets. Sena came out with a new app, maybe sometime next year, called Sena Motorcycle. It's a great app. It connects to the headsets, and you can pretty much control them, configure them from there. So, and I also believe you can do your firmware upgrades for the actual units themselves through that app as well. So that's kind of what you get in the package. So, performance-wise, this thing has Mesh 2.0. The 50C obviously stands for camera, so it has camera and audio capability recording. You do not get a micro SD card, so you do need to get that. Make sure you get the right kind. I think they have to be a V30, pretty high speed. I think you can get up to a 128 card to put in this, so that's what I'm running in this one. I think it's actually a scan disc. You can find them on Amazon. They're not too super expensive. But as far as kind of performance, so in terms of time, charging time is not too much. I mean, a couple hours and this thing is fully charged. If you're running Bluetooth connected to your infotainment system on your Harley-Davidson, if you have the WHIM installed, and I'll put a link to that video as to how you can install a WHIM on your Harley-Davidson touring bike if you do not have that. But if you do have the WHIM, you can connect it in. And the time this headset will run, under normal conditions, pretty much all day long. I've not had any issues on this trip. I've been running it for 8+ hours a day while we've been out riding. Now if you do operate with Mesh 2.0, it will cut down on your time. I did find I was probably getting about maybe 4 or 5 hours. And was getting some low battery warnings when I was running the Mesh. So if you're doing long trips and you're going to be communicating via Mesh, you're going to have to, at your lunch stop or something like that, you might want to consider having your charging cable with you so you can plug it in and charge it. But if you're not running that, no Mesh, pretty good time. Now, I will say if you're running the camera, it does bring that battery, wear it down pretty quick. I would say at most, if you're running communications, Bluetooth, etc., you're going to get maybe a couple of hours of use on it. So, I mean, obviously, I don't run the camera all the time, just when I want to capture something, or I'm talking to you guys like I am now. So, you know, my bursts on the camera are maybe, you know, 5 to 10 minutes at most. So, again, once you turn that camera off, you're kind of back and it's not draining that battery quite as fast. So that's kind of that. So then I would say other performance things is the sound quality. I will say I actually find myself, even when I'm on the CVO and I have the Rockford Fosgate Stage 2 system in this with the speakers and the saddlebags as well up in the fairing, I prefer to listen to music through my headset with the Rockford Fosgate speakers that are in my helmet. Much more clarity, good sound. I can turn it up and down, listen to music very comfortably, and it's great. The sound quality is excellent. You can also adjust that on the app in terms of equalizer and different, you know, speaking modes versus music versus bass boost. There's all kinds of different options on that you can adjust. So that's great. The other thing is, if you do have the WHIM on your bike and you have both yourself and a passenger, you can actually use Vox or the intercom through the system without having to be wired in. Essentially between the WHIM and these Bluetooth headsets, mesh headsets, it kind of replaces the old plug-in that used to come on the Ultra Limiteds, Ultras. You know, used to come on CVOs. Now it's the CVOs come with with the WHIM on them. And, you know, that's kind of the way that Harley-Davidson is going with these things. So I also have the CB module, which I'll put a link to that video as well, where I installed that. I now have it on the CVO as well. So you can use CB, mesh, Bluetooth, all at the same time. And it sort of coordinates that communication through the unit itself and the way you configure it. So good from that perspective. You know, so overall performance, I would say pretty good. Thumbs up. A couple, or maybe one downside to this unit versus the old. I had a 30K that I ran. Obviously, didn't have the camera. So the downside, from my perspective, is really the mount. It doesn't have sort of a positive kind of lock-in system, and then to unlock it, you don't have a push button like you do on the 30K on the side of the helmet mount itself. It just kind of pushes in. So I haven't had any issues, but what I found is I don't necessarily take this off of the helmet to charge it. I just leave it on almost all the time and charge it while it's on the helmet, which is fine. It just, to me, doesn't seem as secure as sort of having that locking mechanism on the helmet mount itself. But, you know, we'll see over time. The other downside is I'm recording this in 4K, and I believe either 30 frames per second or 60 frames per second. 4K on this camera does not give you very good or any stabilization, and you might find that in this video maybe a little bouncy versus if you're looking at the Insta360. When I'm looking back at me, very stable. If you do drop it down to 1080, which, you know, is really, really good, it does have image stabilization, so you can turn that on, I believe, even at 60 frames per second. So you get a little stabler picture. The other thing I will say, the coloring that you get in the video is not as vivid as you get on like an Insta360 or a GoPro by any stretch of the imagination. So, you know, from that perspective, you know, you may need to do a little color grading when you're editing the videos. The other downside I would say is the price. You know, you get the camera and the audio capability and recording, obviously, if you put the micro SD card in, but the price is above $500. I can't remember exactly how much they are for one single unit. So much more expensive than what the 30Ks were. And you can't even get a break in buying two at a time in a paired kit. They don't do that with these, so you just buy them singles. So if you don't need the camera, but you want all of the capability of like Mesh 2.0 and everything these 50 series can do, I would say maybe go with the, I think it's the 50S. And essentially, you know, if you do have a Harley-Davidson, you want to go with the Harley branded version, even though it's a little bit more expensive than the 50 or the Sena 50C. Which essentially is the same camera, except on theirs, I believe they have Harman Kardon speakers for the helmet versus Rockford Fosgate. So as you know, Harley-Davidson's kind of paired up with Rockford Fosgate now. So I'm sure those are as good, but you won't get all the functionality with the Sena branded version with the Harley-Davidson. Now, if you're not going to connect to an infotainment system, you're just going to connect a phone, use mesh, Bluetooth. You know, maybe you go with the Sena branded version because you're not going to miss out on anything if you don't have a WHIM. But the one thing I do know you miss out on is your sound coming through the speakers when you're listening to music. On the Sena, on a Harley-Davidson, will only be mono, versus if you have the Harley branded, you get stereo. It'll be interesting. I think that's just the way of Harley-Davidson, making sure that Harley-Davidson customers buy their branded gear, and it's sort of all, it's the firmware that they built into the WHIMs. So overall, the cameras perform well. You get good battery life if you're not running the camera. The video and audio quality is pretty good. I didn't say much about audio quality, but you know, the recorded audio quality, you have to make sure you get microphone placement correct as well as your gain set correct. Otherwise, you might get a little crackle, and you may even hear it a little bit in this. I try to fix that in the editing process a little bit, but sometimes it's you can't avoid it because these microphones are super sensitive. And I will say, even when I communicate with the guys I ride with via mesh, they will say that I need to move the microphone away from my mouth a little bit because it is very super sensitive. Once you actually, it picks up your voice and it comes through to them super loud. I've actually dialed down the sensitivity on it just a little bit so that I don't have any issues. Overall, it's a pretty good headset. You know, if you want the Harley brand and you want a camera, I mean, I would highly suggest it. It's nice to have. It does take decent quality, and you can record stuff kind of along the way. And the noise cancellation, if you haven't realized, I'm obviously riding the motorcycle, and it pretty much filters out everything other than my voice. I've actually had some people comment on videos like, hey, I can't hear the bike, but that's just the way these microphones are so dialed in to just picking up voice. You know, it's pretty quiet. So overall, yeah, I would recommend it. A good quality headset. Couple downsides that I mentioned earlier, but overall, I'd give it a thumbs up. And if you want to go that route, I'd certainly recommend it, or look at the Sena version of the 50C. So I hope you guys like this type of content. If you will, give this a thumbs up. Also, share this with your friends. If you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, I'd appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to hit that bell icon and select all, so that you do get notified every time I do put out new content. And I am making my way back home today. It's Friday. It's been a 5-day trip. We've had some challenges along the way, and I'm looking forward to getting home. So I'm going to leave you with this thought. Life is short. Get out, ride the bike. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye now.